And lastly, we have probably aside from Batman, one of the most famous movies tonight, Scream from 1996, directed by the well-known Wes Craven, which and this movie revitalized slashers for a new generation, which I will speak about later. But in this one, this is teenage girl who is terrorized by a killer approximately a year after her own mother was killed, and there's a whole bunch of mystery of who this killer is. A bunch of teenagers are dying around the city. Police are looking into a bunch of different suspects, but nobody really knows. There's some prank calls going on, and people are dying, and it's a very I mean, I'm going to assume most people have seen this one. Even if you don't like the movie, I'm guessing most people have seen this one. It's a very meta movie. A lot of horror movies are referenced, the rules of a horror movie is a somewhat famous scene. Slasher movies are brought up again and again. So I know it's a horror movie that knows what it is. And this like it's not like over the top comedy, but there's some pretty amusing scenes in this movie too. That I think, even though this is from the 90s, I still think they work well today. A lot of characters who I think are really enjoyable. A lot of decent performances, and honestly, this is one that I've seen, quite a few times, and I still enjoy it pretty much just as much now as I did when I first saw this.
It's certainly, the opening scene is pretty good, especially when, well, I don't think it's a spoiler to tell too much about what happens in the first 5 minutes, but I think the best part of that scene is just where they kind of zoom in on Drew Barrymore hanging from that tree. There's something pretty creepy about that shot just before the opening title, I believe. So I really enjoy the opening to the movie, and the killer in the movie. I think it's a great slasher costume. It's one of those tier 1 slasher characters in my opinion. It's right up there as one of the most iconic, popular characters that you can get for horror movies. Yeah, I think it's one of the most perfect masks for a slasher character.
And one thing on a sort of quick note that I wanted to bring up, I really like how the ghost face, in this movie, is pretty realistic. I mean, people fight back against him, and he gets thrown around and hit with refrigerator doors, and all this stuff happens to this guy. And I just every time I see the killer falling down, or being pushed back, and it's entirely different from 80s where many of those slasher killers were pretty invincible, and I mean you pretty much had no chance. If they were coming for you, you're going to die. But here it's sort of realistic, and you can fight back against them and hit them, and I thought it brought a very decent element to the movie.
I think Scary Movie has somewhat tainted this one a little bit.
Yeah, I suspect so.
Because even though I enjoy both, I enjoy Scream, I enjoy Scary Movie, and I've probably seen Scary Movie a lot more times, at least more recently, than I have with Scream. And yeah, it just makes it hard at times to watch either one and not think of the other, and especially when you're watching Scary Movie, it kind of, like I say, it kind of taints the original movie. You go back and all you can really think about is how ridiculous David Arquette's character is in Scary Movie and how he poops his pants, and so it makes it a little harder to take him seriously when you go back and watch this movie. But I think, with that being said, I think my favorite character in this movie, well, I don't know if I would say favorite character, but I think it's Matthew Lillard's character.
Yeah.
And it's not even towards the end where he's still trying, getting some laughs out of the viewers, but I think the scene, or at least let's say my favorite scene, not so much my favorite character, but my favorite scene in the movie is when they're in the video store and he's having that conversation with, I forget the other character's name, and he's thinking, oh, do you think Sydney will go out with me? And he kind of pretty much laughs in his face, or trying not to laugh, and that scene right there is, I love that scene.
It's funny because I was actually going to bring up the exact same scene, because Matthew Lillard's an actor who I think is he goes over the top a bit too much for me to really laugh in, but in this movie I think it works really well with his character, and that scene in the video store, I mean, I think on a lot of levels it's a really fun scene, and his performance throughout the movie is just, amazing.
And especially even towards the end of that scene where the guy is just literally yelling, like, everyone's a suspect! And Matthew Lillard's trying to, like, shut the fuck up!
Yeah, see, and that's one thing I really like about this one. And obviously Lillard's not the only memorable character. No, it's been so long since I've seen the first scary movie that luckily I'm not that tainted as you might be. But David Arquette's character consistently broke me up in this movie when he's trying to have a serious conversation with the police chief, or having ice cream. That just it's not it just shows what sort of a younger guy this guy is. So when he's arguing with his sister, hey, does mom know she's coming over? And, hey, when I wear this badge, you respect me. I mean, the guy was he was ridiculous, but in a way that felt somewhat, hey, this could, theoretically in a small town, this could actually happen. So I don't know. I really, both him and Leo being in the characters in this movie, just fantastic, and really make this movie. I think it's a very suspenseful movie. I think it's decent mystery, but those performances are just, they bring a lot of great humor to it. And plus, we just like the principal.
Yeah. That's Fonzie, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, it's just such a small scene, but he puts on the mask, and, that's another scene that just cracked me up.
And now that we're talking about him, I think that's Henry Winkler.
Yes.
I believe that's his name. Yeah, it makes me think of other movies he's been in. Like, I saw him in The Waterboy, and he's got this Roy Orbison tattoo on his ass cheeks, and so now, I don't even have to be watching horror parodies. I just watch other movies that some of these people have been in, and it makes them tough to watch. Well, sometimes it can make them tougher to take as seriously in the movie. So, and it's kind of funny how in the movie, those guys ditch the party and they're all excited to go see what is supposedly the principal hanging from the football goalpost or something. They're not like, oh my god, someone's killed him. They're like, we gotta see this.
Yeah, it's the nice insensitivity that you can expect from many high school students.
Yeah.
Like when they're so happy that school has been momentarily cancelled. Like, hey, thanks, Sid.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll simply say that I don't know where this ranks in my 90s. I don't have any I don't have any top 15 90s horror movies in front of me, but this is probably in my top 20 horror movies from the 90s. I think it's a pretty well done movie. And I'll say one thing further. If Wes Craven had directed A Nightmare on Elm Street, I would actually say this is his best movie. Now, because he directed Nightmare on Elm Street, I would say this is his second best movie. But it really did a lot for the genre, and I know that some people might think movies that followed this, were just generic cliche. I Know What You Did Last Summer from 97, Urban Legend from 98. I'm going as far as Valentine from 2001. But this, like I said near the beginning, this sort of brought slashers back into the mainstream for better or worse. And being a slasher fan myself, I was, I'm really happy that they got sort of like a boost after this movie came out, despite some of them not necessarily being that great. So, I mean, Scream is just a fantastic movie, definitely worth watching, and I'll give this one like a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, I try not to let Scary Movie taint my rating for this one too much. I'm gonna give it an 8, and I do think it is one of the better 90s horror movies out there, and like you said, it's during a time where they were just struggling to put out quality slasher movies, so or any slasher movies really. And so this one came along and did really well, and it brought slashers back for a while. But even though it brought them back for a little while, now I think it's been quite some time since we've had a lot of quality slasher movies back in the theaters. Right now we've spent the last 10 years seeing so many supernatural themed movies where I just really want to see them pump out a lot more slasher flicks.